What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we just watched Ms. Marvel episode 3. And we have a lot to talk about for this episode, as a lot was revealed and made clear now, but a lot of new questions have come up as well. Like, who exactly are the Jinn? They seemed good at first, and they seemed really nice to Kamala, but then of course they were bad trying to get the bangle, and it makes you wonder if they truly are bad, or if they're just doing what it takes to get back home. Also, of course, we have to talk about the ending of episode 3 where Kamala saw the train, but also her grandmother did as well, and now she has to go to Pakistan. And we have finally learned some majorly important things about Kamala's bangle. In this episode, it was revealed that there are two, which basically confirms that these are indeed the Nega Bands, and they are connected to the MCU in ways that we didn't think about before. So let's dive right into it, and of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU videos. So right away, let me know what you thought about Ms. Marvel episode 3. I think there were a lot of great moments in this episode, and I really actually enjoyed the wedding scenes. I think it was really fun, and I think it was actually pretty touching. But unfortunately, the Jinn had to come and screw it all up. And we have learned that the Jinn are from a different dimension. This is important to know because this is actually what Kamala is. Her great-grandmother was a Jinn, and Kamala's grandmother was also a Jinn as well. Now, the Jinn are invisible creatures in early pre-Islamic Arabian religious systems and later in Islamic mythology and theology. They are basically characterized broadly as spirits or demons. And as Najma explained, they are from the Nur dimension, and we learned that Nur means light. So they are claiming that they are from the light dimension. However, it is explained pretty clearly that they were exiled from the Nur dimension. Now, there are many different things that could get you exiled, and this whole group of jinns that we meet in this episode don't exactly seem like the best people. However, I would like to believe that Kamala's great-grandmother was somewhat good, and maybe the exile was due to some type of miscommunication or misunderstanding. Although her friends don't seem that good, and even when they go to the wedding, Kamran says that they will kill them all. And think about that for a second. These people will kill innocent people who are celebrating love at a wedding. That means they're pretty bad people. But let's talk about this opening scene because it is extremely important. And it's important for three major reasons, and I'm talking major reasons. It is really connecting the MCU in ways we didn't think. Yes, of course, it is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but things haven't seemed that connected recently. However, Kevin Feige just a couple of days ago said that in the next few months, we will start to see the bigger picture and how everything is going to connect. And we're starting to see it in this opening scene. In this opening scene, we see the Jinn come across the bangle. We see where it is first discovered. And this is the first major point. It is discovered on the severed blue arm of a Kree. And the second huge point actually goes with it, and that is the fact that they said there was supposed to be two bangles. This confirms what I have been theorizing about since they showed us the bangle in the very first trailer for Ms. Marvel. It confirms that the bangles are indeed the Nega Bands, and the fact that this arm is blue confirms that this person was indeed a Kree. So the Nega Bands make perfect sense. The Nega Bands are a powerful Kree relic, and they are over a millennia old, and they grant the user the ability to turn their mental energy into physical energy. It's almost kind of like the Green Lantern's powers, kind of like if you can think it in your mind, you can create it physically. Kind of the same thing here. Kamala thinks about turning her hand into a giant fist, and it happens. She wants to think about little platforms that she can step on, well, she can make those happen as well. She's obviously got a long way to go with her powers, but we did see a glimpse of what she can do in this episode, where she turned her arm into a giant fist and hit 4 people at once, which of course is mainly what she would do in the comics by simply enlarging her arm. But the Nega Bands in the MCU now explain why they changed Kamala Khan's powers, and why Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, is going to be getting involved in the Marvels or Captain Marvel 2. But now for the third really important part of this opening scene, which connects to the bigger, broader connectivity of the MCU, is that where they discover the bangle, you can see around it the 10 rings. And all of a sudden, things start to kind of click. The 10 rings belong to the Mandarin / Wenwu, and the organization that he formed was the 10 Rings, and they've been around for thousands of years. And if you recall, we actually don't know where Wenwu found the 10 rings. In the beginning of Shang-Chi, some say he found them in a crater or stole them from a tomb. So we don't know exactly where he got them from, but in the post-credit of Shang-Chi, we're made to believe that they definitely aren't from Earth. Now, Bruce Banner asks Captain Marvel if they are Chitauri tech, and she says that it's not like any alien tech that she's ever seen before. However, in the comics, these aren't exactly just your common artifact here. They were a one-of-a-kind artifact that not many people would have known about, and they were originally awarded to Captain Mar-Vell, not Captain Marvel, but Captain Mar-Vell, by the Kree Supreme Intelligence. And of course, in the opening scene, they found the bangle on the arm of a Kree. But what is really interesting here is that the Ten Rings organization had the bangle, which means that Wen-Wu had the bangle as well, but decided to hide it. And I'm really surprised that he decided to not use them. But it looks like the 10 rings were enough for him, or he knew something about the bangles that other people didn't. He might have even been the one that separated the bangles and hid the other one. Or like they mentioned, the British could have taken it, or perhaps the Kree, or even possibly a Skrull has it right now. Now, how does this all connect? Well, keep in mind that at the end of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings in the post-credit scene, Wong says that when Shang-Chi put on the rings for the first time, he felt it. They felt it in the Kamar-Taj, and it set off a beacon. And as soon as they mention that beacon, Captain Marvel gets an emergency alert and has to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually connected to Miss Marvel. Perhaps this is taking place at the same time as that post-credit scene, and the bangle is what sent off an alert, and that it's something that she has to check out. Because remember, the Kree aren't good in the MCU. Maybe some of them are, but for the most part, they changed that comic story about the Kree. So Captain Marvel probably doesn't want the Kree to get their hands on one of the bangles or both of them. Now, it is possible that the 10 rings are actually Kree technology as well, but I am leaning towards no, because they seem like they are kind of connected more to a mystic energy. Because Wong felt it at the Kamar-Taj. He felt some sort of a specific energy, and I feel like Captain Marvel would probably sense if it was Kree. And the fact that the 10 rings are sending off a beacon leads me to believe that these were probably created by some sort of a cosmic entity. And perhaps even in the MCU, the bangles could have been created by a cosmic entity as well. In the comics, they are ancient Kree tech, but in the MCU, to kind of connect everything and to keep everything original, they oftentimes change comic origins. So I am really excited to see how Miss Marvel plays out, and now I'm even more excited about the future of the MCU because it's all starting to connect in ways that we didn't actually think it would. And there's a lot more to play out specifically within the Miss Marvel story. Bruno has told Kamala that he's going to be going to California, but Kamala asked Bruno if he knows anything about interdimensional travel, which yeah, sure, no problem for a 16-year-old kid. But Bruno is actually incredibly smart, and he name drops Dr. Eric Selvig and says that he remembered a book that he wrote. Now, of course, many people remember Dr. Eric Selvig from the first two Thor movies and the first Avengers movie, and he had done a lot of research on Einstein-Rosen bridges or interdimensional travel. And that is essentially what they are trying to do here. Try and travel to a different dimension or a different realm. Now, in the comics, the Nega Bands actually do have the power to kind of go into different dimensions. In the comics, the bangles can take somebody into the negative zone, and in the comics, Annihilus actually finds a pair of Nega Bands and he uses them to create a breach in his dimension into the positive matter universe. So like they kind of mentioned in the beginning of this episode, the Nega Bands or the bangles can actually give the user interdimensional travel. So more multiverse, more realm and domain jumping, which seems to be a more common theme now, and of course this was all set up in Multiverse of Madness. Now of course Bruno says that it's too dangerous and would take too much power. It would take the power of a sun. And if you recall what Loki said in the first Avengers film, after the very first Thor, where the Rainbow Bridge / Bifrost was destroyed, Loki asked Thor how much power Odin had to conjure up to actually send him to Earth since the Bifrost was gone, making it seem like it took Odin an immense amount of power to send Thor there. And remember, that's Odin, one of the most powerful gods in Marvel. And apparently it took him a lot just to send Thor to Earth. So the power needed for interdimensional travel, as you can imagine, is a lot. Which of course obviously makes it extremely dangerous. And here we learn that Kamran isn't exactly a bad dude. When he finds out that it's extremely dangerous, he also finds out that his mother doesn't care that it's extremely dangerous, and that she's kind of gonna do what it takes to get the bangle from Kamala. So him, being kind of a good dude, goes and warns Kamala, and he tells her that they're gonna kill everybody at that wedding, and Kamran actually fights on Kamala's side against his own mother and his own people. So a lot more story to play out here. Also, Nakia has been elected to her mosque board. Big congratulations to her. I'm sure we're going to hear more about this, especially because the DODC is looking for Miss Marvel, and now she has learned that Nightlight is actually her best friend, Kamala. So I'm sure now she's really not going to be having a good time when the DODC arrives again. And of course, we have to talk about the end scene. Now in this episode where Kamala was fighting off the Jinn, at one point in time the bangle lights up and Najma manages to grab the bangle at the same time, and they both see a vision of a train. On the train, it says Karachi. And this, of course, is connected to the story that we heard from Kamala's father about Kamala's great-grandmother. Her great-grandmother and grandmother had to get on the last train to leave. However, her grandmother, who was just a baby at the time, got lost, but she found her way back to the train by following a trail of stars. Now we know that obviously Kamala's great-grandmother had the bangle, and she was the one that was creating the trail of stars for her daughter, which was Kamala's grandmother, to get back to the train. The reason she herself didn't get on the train was because she was helping her people. And what's interesting now is that Kamala's grandmother saw the same vision of the train that she did, and I'm assuming that her mother is probably connected to this as well, which is why she didn't want Kamala to have the bangle. She didn't want her to know about any of this or get involved, because as she has mentioned before, her grandmother, Kamala's great-grandmother, brought shame to their family. But like I've been saying, it's not exactly all that it seems. But now it looks like Kamala and possibly her mother are going to Karachi. And this is going to be exciting because this is where they're going to meet Red Dagger. So a lot of really exciting stuff coming up for Miss Marvel. Go ahead and let me know your theories and thoughts about this in the comments down below and what you thought of this episode. Don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.